Hello.
Yeah, it's Gary.
Hello, Gary. How are you doing?
I'm most free. Show you.
Good, good. Gary, thank you for calling in. Should we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Great, great. So let me just start off. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the April edition of Carpe Datum Prescriptions. My name is Shirish Netke, president of Ambrone Inc., and our guest for this month is Gary Vaynerchuk, partner at Vaynermedia, which is a brand consulting firm focusing on social media. And Gary is also a best-selling author of two books. One is called Crush It, the other is called The Thank You Economy, and I could go on and on. Gary is overall a renaissance man. Is that the way you describe yourself, Gary?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. So, Gary, welcome to Carpe Datum Prescription, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. How are you?
Great, great, great. So, Gary, as you may know, our listeners are business executives from corporate America who are interested in big data analytics, especially as it relates to marketing and customer engagement. And we're really delighted to have you here today. So,
fantastic. Thrilled to be here. Totally get it.
Great. So let's get down to the questions. You know, the big data has gone through like 2 years of a hype cycle with a lot of interest, especially from chief marketing officers. And I'll just begin with one question. Do you think this technology is ready for the 99%? That is the mainstream businesses?
The technology in place to take the big data and make it consumable to the majority of the market?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen products. I would say yes. I actually think that it's far more important to know what to do with the big data than the concerns I have with are the products there, is the data there, technology there. I mean, it's getting better every day, but I feel like it's sufficient enough because I feel the marketers are letting down the data at this point because they're not really using it to its fullest.
Right, right. Well, a lot of people are saying, well, you know, this is great stuff, but we've been doing things in a different way for a long time, and do we really need this technology or not? And, I mean, there are more people, some people saying it, some are not. And we tend to think that the guys who are adopting it are going to be the winners in the next generation.
I think so, but I do think some, there, you know, big data reminds me in some weird way like the wine world. You know, I think I came along and brought a lot of value to the wine world because I knew how to storytell.
Yeah.
And wine needed a storyteller. I actually think that the people that most understand big data right now, you know, since it's early on, are not necessarily always the best storytellers. And so as storytellers and marketers start becoming educated enough to know what to do with the story of big data and start using it and start telling it, I do sit in a lot of meetings where big data companies come in and they're just terrible at communicating their value proposition. And I sit there and I try to help them along because I think, and I don't, listen, I'm no big data expert, I just understand it. And I'm like completely baffled and always feel compelled to try to help them sell it because I think I can see them struggling along the way.
Right, right. Now, in fact, a lot of this happens to deal with, we think, deals with perspective. Now, I mean, we've often used the parable of 5 men and an elephant in describing data. That means the argument is that if you have superior data, you have superior perspective. If you have superior perspective, you make superior decisions, and superior decisions lead to superior results. Now, and there are a lot of business people who are thinking this way. I mean, they think that if they cannot get the right perspective or the right analysis from the data, it's of no use to them. So I guess the question for you then would be, in your opinion, are business leaders today getting a good perspective of their business by looking at their data? I mean, let's just forget about the big or small data.
Listen, I'm going to play a different card here. I would tell you that most progressive companies and marketers, and I work with a lot of Fortune 500, they're getting more than enough data. I think that, like I said, I think my opening line is going to ring true throughout this interview. I think they're letting you down. I think the data in a weird way is too good. I think, very honestly, that marketers have liked the subjective world because big top marketers know how to storytell, and they've story-told their CEOs and their boards that they've been doing a good job. And now the fact that there's more data, it doesn't let them get away with that as much.
Oh yeah, so they have to quantify. They have to put numbers behind a lot of
That's
stuff.
right. And so, in some weird way, I think behind the scenes, and I'm sure you probably agree with this, some big data, some CMOs and marketers and top people actually don't want big data to necessarily happen so quickly because they're more on the hook for their decisions, and a lot of them are crippled by making the tough decisions.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, there was an article in the Harvard Business Review this week that said that analog outstrips digital by a factor of 3 when it comes to budget allocation. And we're sitting here wondering, in this day and age, where it's kind of very easy to justify all the quantifiable metrics on things more like digital media, why are we still spending money on stuff which is kind of fuzzy in terms of its return?
I mean, you're preaching to the choir, right? I mean, my entire career has been predicated on selling the future and making it practical. It was a lot easier when it was my own business. I made my own decisions, and that's why it happened for me. As I've now gone to the B2B side where I've had to convince people to execute or do things, it's definitely become a bigger challenge. However, the fact is that the world has changed, and the quicker we start realizing that and changing the way we go about marketing, the quicker we're going to have to see people have results. And so, listen, it's always a mix, right? I mean, there's a reason that, Groupon and Zynga and Fab and these companies have done extremely well. It's been very analytical. It's been very acquisition model based, mathematic quant driven. However, on the flip side, I believe a lot of companies struggle with retention, keeping those customers, and I actually think that's quite human. And so, it's kind of hunting and farming, and obviously big data can let you hunt and acquire and quantify things in a much more efficient way. And I just think that most people continue to struggle with recognizing the value of that. They continue to play the politics of why they don't want that in the first place. Or really, I would tell you that if you ask me, of the 100 people that can make it, that I've come across that can make a decision, not necessarily my clients, just the general world.
Okay.
100 people that can make decisions. I would tell you that 40 of them are so smart they realize they don't want big data because it puts them on the hook.
Yep.
The other 40 of them are so uneducated and so lack progressiveness that they don't see value in it.
Yep.
Right? And then the other 20 of them are just trying to figure it out and navigate through it. And so that's kind of how I see the landscape.
Yeah, in fact, the article talks about a mismatch between expertise and authority in corporations, which is leading to this, I would say, this misallocation of resources. And from our point of view, we're from Silicon Valley. We have always come up with newest technology, and we feel like we're the machine gun salesman, and the guys are saying we're too busy building bows and arrows to listen to the machine gun sales guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same old game. This is nothing new, by the way. This is the way innovation has
always
lived.
been.
Its entire history, right? Its entire history. There was plenty of people commuting product through horses while the automobile was a more efficient, more viable means of transportation. There were plenty of people. And those people went out of business because their margins got, cut as more efficiencies came in, and they got exposed, and they got filtered out. And so, again, big data is a big buzzword in my world. As somebody who keeps his ear to the street. And I would tell you that the people that I know big data the best, they're too far to the extreme of practicality of not realizing how the common person doesn't understand. And two, they need to understand that you need to do something with it. I mean, that's the part that I'm most fascinated by. So once you get, like, in your analogy, insights lead to actions, lead to results. The problem is humans still have to do the actions, and it's been very disappointing to me to see leadership be extremely half-assed with their execution around good data.
Yep. So actually, let me just segue this into another comment we have. I think I listened to an interview you had with Piers Morgan at CNN. I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, and you made a very interesting comment which I kind of remembered, and it said that you said that our grandparents were better qualified to run a business than we are because they cared for their customers. And that struck me because it's almost like saying, as business people today, have we become data rich and perspective poor? And do we have too much information? Are we just blinded by too much information to focus on what's really important.
Yeah, that shotgun me, unfortunately, for a second there, so I missed a piece of context. If you don't mind to wrap it up.
The context was in your interview with Piers Morgan a while ago. You said that our grandparents were better qualified to run a business than we were.
Grandparents, absolutely.
Because they care about the customers.
What I was referring to there was, I actually very much believe in your world that big data and quantified analytics are going to be very mature and prevalent over the next decade, right?
Yeah, yep.
And then what happens then is it becomes a commodity. When everybody uses it, well, then it loses its value. If you're the only one with big data and your competitor doesn't have it, and you do something about it, you have a better chance of winning, right?
Absolutely.
But what if McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's all have the same data saying that you need to launch a cucumber sandwich because people will eat it?
Yep.
Well, then all of a sudden it's a commodity, right?
Right.
So the way I play this out is, in my mind, big data's already won. It's going to be here, quant-driven analytics. That I already check, finished. Even though it hasn't, even though it's not real yet, even though most companies underuse it, I play out in my mind, check. Because in 10 years it will, right?
Yeah.
So then the next thing that becomes interesting to me is what happens next. And what happens next, to me, is the fact that then it becomes about EQ, not IQ, right?
Yep.
It becomes about caring and customer service and things that are emotional. So I break things into emotional and intellectual. I think that data is going to map intellectual, and I think that the battle is going to be around emotional, and that's why I'm very focused on it.
Great. So let me ask you a question about Vaynermedia. I guess you guys help large companies in building their brand, and that's
a legacy statement on the website. We actually don't really storytell too much on our website because really we think a website for an agency is only used for two things. One is recruitment of talent, and the other is recruitment of business, and we don't have a problem with either. So we don't, I think that you don't have to do things for the sake of doing them. If everything is, if that's what we think it's for, and we're fine in both areas, well then why put energy into it, right? So what we are right now is a social media strategy and production company. Okay. We produce micro content. We produce the content for Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram. For our clients based on their KPIs and their voice.
So do you do a lot of data analysis and metrics and measurement associated with the content?
We do. And so, obviously, we do a lot of sentiment analysis and a lot of analytics. We're very heavily grounded in the analytics of the Facebook world because we're very focused on raising awareness and attentions and impressions and unmasking the virality and things that make page rank work.
Yeah.
So we are deep. It's something we spend time on.
So could you give us some examples of companies you've kind of helped out? People who are, let's say, novices on the social media, and you don't have to give names, just ideas of how you have actually helped the customers go from like here to there, from where they are.
I mean, some of the things I've worked on with our clients, without our clients, is completely quantified because the data leads to an actual purchase on .com, so we can show them that data. That's very easy. Most of them we can't connect it because most of them are CPGs or media companies. And so the quantified value that we're bringing there is the same thing that they ROI PR and radio and television and print around, which is awareness, right? Impressions. So obviously, if we're able to make a piece of content go viral and 10 million people see it instead of 100,000, well, that's where our value is, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on the client. It depends on the situation. It depends on the initiative. For a lot of them, it's complete awareness, and for a lot of them, it's driving towards a campaign or a registration. For some of them, it's driving towards an actual sale.
So, are there any technology platforms or social media forums which you prefer versus the others? I mean, we've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook.
Facebook is so much deeper in their analytics than a lot of the other platforms that we're able to show a hell of a lot more analytics, a hell of a lot more of the audience that we're reaching. But we tend to want to storytell where we think the consumer is. So even though Instagram and Tumblr and Twitter may not be as far along with analytics, and Pinterest, we spend a hell of a lot of time storytelling in those platforms because consumers are on them.
Okay. That makes sense. So let me.
And you have to understand why, right?
Yeah.
Like, because eventually Pinterest and Tumblr and Instagram are going to have analytics that are going to quantify or justify to our consumers.
Yeah, even
And
if
so
they're not
I'm
there
never,
yet. Yeah, they will be
Yeah,
there.
that's right. I'm never upset with being the person that justifies why. I'm obsessed putting all my energy into being great at it because I already know intuitively that it's going to be important.
Yeah, and that's justification enough.
In 2006 and 2007, people were asking me why I spent 15 hours a day on Twitter, what the ROI was. The ROI for me spending all those hours on Twitter has been tens of millions of dollars. They've led to my book deals, my speaking, the foundation of building my agency, the reason I show up on television. I mean, there's, the reason I was able to invest in things. You're getting into the tens of millions on the ROI of Twitter for me. Why? Because at the time, I knew everybody would eventually spend a lot of time on it, and I knew that if I was a force on it, that'd be great. And eventually, I knew that I could analytically understand conversion, not to mention the fact that I could easily put in a link and watch what it did from a single tweet, right?
Yeah, and I guess was that more of a visceral judgment call for you rather than kind of analysis of where Twitter was going versus some other media was going?
I mean, to me, the funniest part of all is the ROI data of justifying other media is a hell of a lot less black and white than social media.
Oh, yes.
It's not even close. I mean,
it's much
the
more
way
numbers.
I see they justify the value of outdoor media or PR is laughable.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's that. There's a big. I think going back to our earlier statement. It's amazing how the adoption has been slower than it has been, and I think it's a great opportunity.
That's because 99% of the people aren't good. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And 99% of people are just not good enough. I mean, there's nothing else to say. The talent is far and few between. And a lot of people that are making decisions aren't talented enough, and they want to hold on to what they know because they don't want to have vulnerabilities. And so humans are flawed, and that's what's led to adoption. I'm not shocked. I'm actually shocked how fast it's going. I mean, I went through this with e-commerce. People laughed at e-commerce in 1994 and 5. Laughed.
I was there.
Laughed.
Yep.
And so, when I launched a .com for a local liquor store, a corner liquor store in New Jersey in 1996, people thought I lost my mind. I mean, my dad was yelling at me to get off the computer and get on the floor and sell wine.
Yeah, yep.
So I've been through this rodeo. This is what I call just a matter of time.
Okay. So here, I'm going to ask you a question about your book now. And I'm going to read the whole title. It's called Jab, 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 Right Hook. How to Sell Your Story in a Noisy Social World. Now, I'll let people sort of figure out what the book is about and all that stuff, but let me ask you a simple question, or two questions. Could you have written this book 2 years ago, number one, and number two, will this book be relevant 5 years from now?
Number one, heck no, because I didn't realize until recently how important content native to the platform was in my actual success. I thought it was more about community management and things of that nature. Number two, 5 years from now, I would say I can guarantee it'll be relevant 3 years from now, but 5 might be a little out of its stretch for me to feel 100% confident.
Yeah, in fact, one of our guys had a suggestion for you, is to get Alec Baldwin to promote your book and say something like, always be jabbing.
One more time? I'm sorry, that shot too. I heard Alec Baldwin.
So Alec Baldwin, there was there's a movie where he talked about always be closing.
Got it. Yes, I love that. I got it, of course.
Always be jabbing.
Yeah, always. I mean, listen. First, I'm going to work on Mike Tyson before anybody else.
Okay, choose your boxer of choice, right? So hey,
that's right.
I know we are short of time, but I had a sort of one question for you at the end. I mean, we always ask all of our speakers to talk about what is the Carpe Datum prescription, and what if you could offer one piece of advice to a Fortune 500 CEO as it relates to what's happening in the world today, especially as it relates to analytics. What would that one piece of advice be?
Take 5% of your working media and give it to a ninja unit, to a Navy SEALs unit internally, and let them spend it on new innovations and testing, consumer insights, and pushing the boundaries of who you are. It is an all or nothing world in corporate. Even the U.S. government, which has the biggest army in the world, they still allocate plenty of money to a very small group of individuals known as Navy SEALs. And sometimes those Navy SEALs have to go out and do things. I highly recommend every Fortune 500 CEO allocate some dollars, give it to some Navy SEALs, and let them go out and do things that can actually bring some long-term value, and then let them play the marathon instead of the sprint that 95% of your other money is being spent on.
That is a fantastic recommendation. I'm sure our folks would be very happy to listen to that. So, Gary, I know your time is very limited, and I really appreciate you joining us on Carpe Datum Prescriptions.
Pleasure.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great day. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Bye.